Once upon a time, we used to talk about the 40-hour work week. So tell me, how many hours a week do you put in?
Well, I know there are 7 days in a week. Sometimes I wish there were 8. I have always been this way, though. Mm-hmm. So I have to say, and I tell teachers this, that when Bill and I were dating, Bill taught at Pinkerton Academy in those early days, and I taught in Lebanon. And he might come up for a visit for the weekend. One day of the weekend was spent at my school, and we both were doing work. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't working on, blogging or other things, but there was plenty of work to be done.
Right.
And the work of kindergarten doesn't come home very easily. You'll see little piles. Here's Ella Jenkins, a new CD that I have to load on her iPod, and I have a math book over there, and just junk everywhere. My bags are in the other room. I mean, the work of kindergarten does not come home very easily. So I usually go to school once a week on a weekend, so on a Sunday. And Bill is a high school teacher. He spends a lot of time at night doing whatever it is that high school teachers do, and planning lessons and correcting things. And yes, I do, work on posting things on my blog, and I've been a little negligent. Our last post is probably mid-March. I haven't had a lot of time, and I just have to say that has to be okay. It's not that I'm not doing the work of the classroom, but other things come up. It is time consuming, but teaching is, they call it work. There's a reason. Right. There's a reason why they do. And I wouldn't get violent with someone who said, well, teaching is just, it's great. You have your weekends off, you have your summers off. I wouldn't get violent, but I would want to say, let me tell you about my life. Because it isn't summers off anymore. I'm actually, last summer it was really hard to find a time where maybe my husband and I could take a little vacation. There are classes to attend, there are conferences to go to become better informed, and maybe I'm a little unusual because I also present at conferences, but I also attend conferences, and then there's work at school. There's curriculum work that can't happen during the school year because there just aren't enough hours in the day. We're going to be writing a new technology plan. I'm on the technology committee at school. So people don't really even understand that.
So for all that work, why don't you just get a job? I mean, would you ever leave teaching?
No. I can't.
And the world's better for that.
Well, I don't want to do anything else but teaching.
It's just like amazing. And then I thought, well, maybe it's because I've really been away from school for so long or whatever. But now we have nieces and nephews who I think they should go to your kindergarten class. I really do.
There's a fairly elite group of people who are doing what is happening in my room. And I don't mean that in any kind of braggart kind of way. And elite just meaning, it's small and but anybody can join. Several years ago, so I've probably been doing this for about 5 years, probably was possible. I don't know how old blogging really is, but probably blogging's been around for about 8 years, so it's really not that long. The possibility to blog. I think there have been other ways of doing things, and obviously articles in newspapers and letters to the editor and all of those opportunities for people's voice to get out there have been there, but this just makes it so much easier. So when I first started, I had gotten interested because I was podcast, and the reason why I was listening to podcasts was a new word. It was the summer that the first iPod, it was the summer that the iTunes store was actually opened, and my husband and I, it was our 25th wedding anniversary when we went to Chicago for the National Technology Conference. We celebrated our wedding anniversary at a technology conference. The first white iBook came out, and we went to this technology conference because we had heard about these iPods that were being developed, and My son had actually had an iPod because he was raised in a Mac family and he likes gadgets too. And so we went to the conference because it was the first video iPod. It was the first video iPod, but it was the first iPod that was going to come out that you could show pictures on. And I still have it. I'm using it in my classroom. And I was kind of doing some research on it because our state technology conference was wanting to present that as an educational tool. People would pay for the tool and get some training, and I was going to be the one to train them because I said, this will transform learning. It will just, make so many other things possible. You could attach a microphone to it, and you could use it as a digital recorder. And I was just going on and on, but I'd never touched one. And so we went to the conference to kind of research it. And I can still remember you could borrow one you could sign it out for 2 hours. And I remember doing that and walking around the exhibit floor, because that's where you had to stay, with it. And I couldn't even figure out how to turn it on. But would I ask anybody? No, it's kind of like, oh, what do you do? And I'd read, I thought, I'm intelligent enough to figure it out. And I had the headset plugged into my ear. And at the time, the headsets came with little foam protectors. And I finally figured out how to do it, but there really wasn't anything on the iPod, so there really wasn't much to do with it. Turned it back in, went to a workshop that Apple was running, and I flicked my ear, and I still had the foam stuck in my ear. And I thought, oh my gosh, I want to teach people how to use this. And I was so embarrassed. But we were very excited by the possibility of that. And so I was able to get an iPod because I was going to be teaching this. And then I thought, okay, now I have to find out about podcasts. When we were at that national conference, I saw this wonderful man whose name is David Warlick, big name in education technology. And I was like, Bill, look, he's got the microphone. And he was walking around taking audio files from people, and then he would convert them and put them into a podcast. And it was also the opening of the iTunes store, and started giving information about podcasts. And basically that's what the iTunes store was doing, was maybe selling a few records or music files, but a lot of podcasting. So got my iPod, started listening to a couple educational podcasts, and found one from New Hampshire. So a guy in his basement in Bow, New Hampshire, was having it was called EdTech Talk, and having a podcast with his co-host in Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island. And so it was because of that EdTech Talk show that I really started hearing about voices in educational technology, and that then just totally opened my world. And I heard about a teacher in Maine. His name was Bob Sprankle, and he was blogging with his class, and he was actually podcasting with his class. And so I just wrote to Bob. I sent him an email and said, hey, I'm over here in New Hampshire. Do you know any kindergarten teachers who would like to connect and talk? And we do monarch butterfly migration. A lot of kindergarten classrooms do. And he put me in touch with a second grade teacher who was blogging in another town in Maine. And that's how it all began. There were very, very few of us. Leah was doing it. She didn't, she is still blogging with her class, and then listening and reading and following links. Several people in Australia. There was a woman in New Zealand rather, Jody Hayes. I connected my class blog with her. She was connected with a woman in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, who's still a really good friend of mine. And I could name the people, and that was all there really were 5 years ago. Kathy Cassidy in Moose Jaw had been doing blogging she started in the spring the year before. I started in the fall that following year. My friend Leah had started, she was actually podcasting first before she started blogging. She was doing it the spring before. And Jody Hayes in New Zealand, and there were quite a few people in New Zealand, a couple people in Australia, and that was
Now on your blog, it's supported by Blogmeister.
Blogmeister, and that was started by
And
this David Warlick.
And is that available to all teachers?
It is available to all teachers. It is free. David has given server space and put a lot of his own money into it. He puts his own time into writing the code for it. There's a listserv so that when people want to talk about issues they're having, they can directly communicate with David, and he fixes it up. There are many more blogging platforms available now, but in the early days there wasn't anything that was really safe and secure.
Yeah.
So I approve all the comments that are made before they go out. I can delete them, I can edit them if someone has made a really gross spelling error and it's going to make them look bad, I can change that. And then my students can blog, and older students can blog and sign in and blog, but the teacher still has approval before it actually goes out.
So you have a lab that your students go to.
We do have a room that has quite a few computers, the lab, but they also do this in the classroom too.
So is that part of the curriculum, or do they ask you, can we blog today, or
it's actually part of our writing, but they write with pencil and paper as well. We go to we've been going to the computer room. It was 2 times a week, and now we're going once a week because we're using more of the technology in the classroom. They're more independent, so I don't have to take the whole class to the lab.
So do you do a lot of video in the classroom?
We have 4 small Wonder cameras, which are like the flip cameras. It's just another company. The kids will video. A lot of times they just video their work. If they have to put a block building away, they'll make a video of it before they put it away. And a lot of times we don't really do much with that video, but we also do make videos in the classroom. It's time.
I was noticing on your class roster is just the first name.
Yes.
And
parents give permission for me to post their child's name or a pseudonym. So some of those may be the child's name, or it may not be the child's name. But
so their last name is missing for privacy.
Yes, for privacy. And on those blogs that are the children's blogs, we don't put any photograph of the children on that blog.
Right.
But on the main blog, I've gotten permission from the parents to put the children's pictures on.
I was asking that because it's so much about make sure you give credit to whoever said this or gave the blog or whatever, and I that's what prompted that question.
So on their blogs, you're not going to see a picture of them. It'll be their work, and we have to get permission from parents to publish children's.
They must have a lot of satisfaction in seeing their work published.
They do, and it actually helps motivate them to do work because they're looking for comments. They love reading the comments. So this is a comment from a classmate, and then this is a comment from a student. You
do quite a bit of global training back and forth with other students, other schools.
We're very much connected to this classroom. This is Mrs. Cassidy's class. This is in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. She has a fantastic blog.
I love the Shadow Cats.
Yes, she has a fantastic blog. And then, see, we're listed in her blog list. And then we're very connected to the GEMS in Australia.